Well, all right. Hello and welcome everyone to TransForm Tuesday. My name is Dave McCormick. I'm VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. And today I'm going to be joined by Bob Moore, who's our VP of Mobility here at Alpha. And Bob has been working on our Zapier integration with TransForm. And today he's going to show you some stuff that you haven't seen before. It has to do with a Zapier integration, but for dispatch applications this time. So let's get started. Hello, Bob. Are you there?
I am here, right? I'm ready to
Excellent.
go.
And I can see your screen already, so we're ready to go.
Okay, so what we're gonna take a look at today is using a Zapier action. So in this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a Google spreadsheet. So I've got this spreadsheet that I call vehicle maintenance, right? And owner, date, vehicle mileage, and oil changed, oil filter changed, air filter change, and then just an additional work field. And what we're going to do is when a new row is added to this spreadsheet, it's going to populate a transform form. So you might want to use this, and this could be sort of any application that is integrated with Zapier. When something happens, it could be a spreadsheet, it could be a accounting package, or it could be almost anything. That when something gets filled out, ultimately it could be used to as the next step in the process would be to create a new transform form. So you might want to use it to like partially fill a form out so that the worker in the field can fill out the rest of the information later. It's a nice convenient thing to be able to do. So, and we'll be using Zapier for that, and I will work through. We'll actually create a Zap, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. But let's go into TransForm and just take a look at this quick form that I built. So it's just called a work completed form. It's over here, and here we see an owner, a date, vehicle mileage, oil change, oil filter, air filter replaced, and any additional work there. And if we go over to the management console, we can see that we've got some information in here now. And this, I believe, all came from that an earlier Zap that I had done on the spreadsheet. If you look closely, you actually might even recognize, let's see if I can find the name here. Yeah, there's David Cates, one of Alpha, a guy who does a lot of development work with Alpha, driving a 2018 Mazda MX-5. I don't think David really drives that, but I did that for fun. So you'll recognize some of the names, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, for you Led Zeppelin fans, David Gilmour. All of my favorite musicians are in here too, so that's kind of fun. Anyway, so we've got our form, and what we'd like to do is create a Zap. So let's go ahead and do that. So when we make a Zap, by invitation, hopefully you've got the TransForm a Zap that we put together. I don't know, it was a month and a half ago or so. I noticed they changed this a little bit, so I had to today I had to enter in my API key again, and it looks a little different. This TransForm cloned and then the date. That's when we actually submitted this. And keep in mind that this is still beta code, so we're still testing this, and you guys are all part of that. So if you run into any issues, please give us feedback. And if you don't have an invitation, just make sure Dave knows that, and then we'll get an invitation out to you, so you'll get this.
Right,
So,
and if you could just send an email to TF, as in transform, TFservice at alphasoftware.com, I will make sure that you get the invite to Zapier.
So what we've done in the past is we used TransForm as a trigger, and Dave did this last week. So if we use TransForm as a trigger, what that means is if a TransForm form is filled out, then when it's submitted, you might want to do something like, I think what we did last time was send out a Gmail. So we sent out a mail to somebody when a new form was filled out. But today we're going to go the other way, and we're going to use Google Sheets as our trigger, and we're going to use TransForm as our action, okay? So let's go ahead and start it. So we'll pick our Google Sheets, and what we would like is anytime a new or updated spreadsheet row, well, actually I could just say a new spreadsheet row. So it triggered when a new row is added to the bot. So I'm gonna do that. That's gonna be fine. Save and continue. And at this point now you have to connect to your Google account. I've already done that. So, and now it's going to ask you what spreadsheet do you want to use. So it's going to go off and find out the spreadsheets that are registered to that account, and then we have this vehicle maintenance spreadsheet. That was the spreadsheet that we looked at earlier. Now you need to pick out the worksheet. In this case, there's just one. Continue. And they say, make sure you've got at least, one spreadsheet row created. Make sure that it matches the trigger options that you picked. We have all that. Now it's going to look for an existing spreadsheet row. The test was successful, and we could view that here if we'd like. The data that came back, Fernando Alonso's McLaren 720S. Hopefully you all know who Fernando is. He just actually won, he won Le Mans this weekend. And but he is a Formula One driver for McLaren. All right, so now what happened, if you look closely, is it jumped to action. It says, okay, so we got a spreadsheet row. Now, what do you want to happen from here? I could say, well, send out an email. But in this case, I'm going to say, no, I want to use TransForm. And what we've exposed as an action is create a new form instance. So in this case, that's what we're going to do. Once again, you need to connect to your TransForm account. And here you'll need this is where we enter in your API. So this we covered last week, but just so you know, I think it's in home here, this is where you'll get your API key. So if you just click on this, you can get your API key, and ultimately that's what has to be entered in over here. And then you can initiate a test, and it will come up with something like this saying the account type is licensed, and you're good to go. All right, so now, what form would we like to use? So what TransForm form? So we're making an API call here. We're seeing all of the forms that I've got created, and I've got this one called work completed. And we're going to specify who's the user entering in the data. So we'll just say that's me. And now these are going to relate to fields that are in the form. So back at TransForm, let's look at the designer on the work completed form. So you'll see we've got an owner, date, vehicle, mileage, and so on, right? So come back over here. So our owner is going to map to one of these fields here. Let's see, here's owner. And date, in this case, do I have a date? I think I do, yep, date. And the vehicle maps to vehicle. These don't necessarily have to be exactly the same. And the mileage, oil change, will map to oil changed. Oil filter replaced is going to be oil filter changed. Air filter changes, and then additional work maps to additional work. Okay, we're all set. So we can see our form, how our fields are mapped. We've pulled in some actual information. In this case, this last record does not have these fields filled out. So if we go back to TransForm and look in the management console here. Oh, actually, that hasn't even been submitted here. That's going to be back over here because I was playing around with this a bit earlier, so you can see that this just hasn't been finished. And so you might want to do that. Just fill out some of the form and off you go. All right, so at this point, we can send a test to TransForm. Let's go ahead and do that. It was sent, and in this case, a record was added. So let's go back to Trans. We should actually see it in there, right? So let's see if I can refresh. And this is it. This is the record that was added through our test, and there's Fernando there. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish. And now you're ready to turn on your Zap. So we can say, just say new work order. Turn our Zap on. And now you could go and see it on your dashboard. So this is the only Zap that I currently have turned on. So these are some others that are turned off at this time. But these, in this case, we were saying, oh, well, when a new form is filled out, send out an email, or here, and when a new work form is filled out, send it to a spreadsheet. So it just shows you the flexibility here of Zapier. So in order for this to work at this point now, you can just enter in some new information. So let's just say we're going to do some work on Lewis's car. So we'll say Lewis Hamilton, and we'll just drop in a date. I'll put him in a 2018 Mercedes. God knows what model he'd be driving, right? And we'll put some mileage on it. And let's say that's all we're going to fill out at this time. That should be all we have to do there. I think that, yeah, that saves actually automatically, as I recall. So that should be all set. And what will happen is these Zaps with so I have just like a developer account. And what happens is these Zaps run like every 15 minutes. I think when you first start out, you get like 2 weeks where they'll run every 5 minutes. So if you have a paid account, it'll run every 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes, that thing will fire. And I don't know if I can manually fire it. Run, manually running, yeah. So there it goes. So in TransForm, so I don't have to wait for it. Yeah, and there it is. So now we can see the data we entered into the spreadsheet is now into the TransForm form. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover today, Dave. So we can open this up to questions if you'd like.
Very cool. So the fields that you mapped, is one of the fields, is it the user ID? For example, actually it looks like it may be because it has bob.moore@alphasoftware.com. And the reason I asked that is because when that's filled out, it means that if you had opened it up on your phone, you should be able to see that record there as well. It should appear on your phone.
That's correct. I'm not even sure I have TransForm installed on my phone. So let's see. Let's just see if that's true. This is my iPhone 10. I don't see it, Dave. So, but yeah, obviously.
No problem at all. but that is how it works, so that's not a problem. Now, you have a free account or a developer's account, but with the paid account, you could do more zaps. So conceivably, you could both write to Alpha Transform, but you could also send an SMS message, I presume, uh, and say,
Yeah,
"Hey,
actually,
you just got a new form."
yeah, you can. Yes, you can, and you can even add more steps, right? So, like
Yeah.
in this case, let's edit this, right? So I could add another step.
Uh-huh.
So I could have another action fire. So I could say, oh, and also send out a mail or
Right.
whatever. I've
Yeah.
got all these other apps that I can work with. So
Hmm.
Zapier is pretty powerful in that, you can put together a whole workflow of different things that you might want to happen just by filling out that one spreadsheet row. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Nice. Well, let's see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like there are a lot, which means you either really confused people or you were very clear. I think you were very clear. Let's see what's up here. Oh, someone was
Let's
asking the transform. When will the our Zap or our integration be out of beta? And is there any way for the folks out there to help speed this along?
It's really just by exercising the actions and the triggers. So there's two of them, and we've covered both of those you
Right.
did that one last week, and
So
then
the
this
first
is
one, yeah, which was a couple weeks ago, I think.
that
Now,
was the trigger,
that
right?
was the trigger one, and I know that a bunch of people who are watching, so we did it sort of step by step, actually went and built it. So I think you have some activity from there,
Which
but
is good. Yep.
we want to get some activity on this one, and then we can go to the next step with Zapier, and then we'll get approved for real. But in the meantime, you can actually use this in a project, right? You just need to be invited because it's a private.
That's
Is that
correct,
correct?
right.
Yeah.
And the next step here for us as is feedback from people that are using it. If you run into any problems or anything, the
Yeah.
Zapier guys are actually watching this, so they're looking at the activity that's going on. And then
Fantastic.
from there, we have to submit marketing information and so on. And then, yeah, and then they will become an approved app. So they're
Yeah.
they're pretty specific. They're pretty careful in terms of what they actually allow into the Zapier store, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we got another question here, which was, how do I get an invitation for your private Transform Zap? And the way you do that is you send an email to TF Service, that's TF as in Transform, TF Service at alphasoftware.com, and we'll get the invitation out to you. Let me see if there are any other questions. Someone asked, well, okay, that's cool, but why would you do this in Excel to begin with? Or why would you do it in web-based Excel? Why would you do this in Google Sheets as opposed to just filling it out in Transform? And the answer is you probably wouldn't, but it shows you how you can use Zapier to integrate. So maybe Google Sheets won't be the application that you use, but maybe the application that you use is Salesforce or SAP or maybe something straight out of SQL Server or any of the other things that Zapier integrates with, of which there are many hundreds, if not 1,000, different systems that today already have Zapier integrations built in, which means that you can use this no-code method to set up these kinds of workflows.
Yeah,
So
I
for
mean,
this one, example, but it was yeah.
Dave, what I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say was something like, even like I was just happened to look at this Mailchimp thing, right? So if somebody, let's say somebody is filling out a form there, and that ultimately you wanted to get them into a transform form, yeah, that would be perfect, right? So yeah,
Sure.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of uses for it actually.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would think so. This person has a question, but it's not about Zapier. This one is about if you have a client and that client has multiple users under them, do they have the capability to add users themselves in any way? And the answer is yes. If you would like to allow a particular user or a couple of users or a group of users to in turn have the admin capabilities of adding more people, you can set that permissions right on the Transform tab. So did you have Transform running by any chance? Maybe we can just point that out. I could just show folks how that works. Thanks. So if you go to the Home tab, exactly, and you do Manage User Roles, and if you had more than one person there, I have a feeling Bob is a lone wolf here. Oh, nope, we've got two people there. Well, they're both him. But anyway, if you
Right.
clicked on the second one, say Bob Moore, we'll assume the first one, or sorry, the first one.
Yeah.
Right now, we have that person only set up as a user. But if you wanted to give them access to account administration, you could click on that or control click on that choice and click Sit Roles, and then that user would then have the ability to do that. Let's see, any other questions? Or do we get to go home? Let's see. I don't see much else. If you do have any questions or want some other examples shown off in future Transform Tuesdays, by all means, send an email to tfservice, that's as in Transform, tfservice at alphasoftware.com, and we would be happy to oblige. If you have any questions, you could send them to that email address as well. So, Bob, thanks very much for showing this off today. This is very
Oh yeah,
interesting, and
my
we got to
pleasure.
see how the other half of Zapier works. So I
Yeah.
encourage those of you who attended today to please try it out. We'd like to see some usage statistics up there on Zapier, and then they'll let us up into the public store. I mean, you can always use it privately, but it would be kind of cool for us to become official with them, and that would help us out greatly. Super. So thanks very much for attending. Thanks for all of those, especially those who asked questions, and we will see you next Tuesday. Goodbye. Take care.